Thank you, Pihl, and welcome. Good evening. There are a few housekeeping matters that need to be addressed. If you need to go to the restroom, they're on the west side of the corridor near the aquarium that you passed on the way in. We ask that you take this opportunity to please silence your cell phone. Food and beverage is not permitted in the auditorium. And just in case there was any confusion about it, this is a forum, not a debate. So we won't be going back and forth with one another during the course of the evening. We ask that you refrain from applause, catcalls, whistle, or other sonic outbursts. We have a limited amount of time and such interruptions because of the topics that we will get to explore. Earlier this evening, a lottery was held to determine on order in which the candidates will make their 2-minute opening statements. Following that, I will pose questions to our candidates, rotating the initial respondent on each round. The first 5 questions will come from the forum organizers, with the remainder coming from the index card that some of you have filled out. Questions from the group may be combined and edited for brevity and clarity. Once I've read the question, each perspective will have 2 minutes to respond before being halted by our timekeeper, Sean O'Gorman, who's seated down front. So, and then once we've gone through as many questions as we have, we'll have 2-minute closing statements in reverse order of the open. Sean will first be giving our respondents a green card. Yellow card means they have 30 seconds remaining. And when the card says stop, we ask that you would stop at the end of that sentence. And please, not a Charles Dickinson sentence, please. All right, just keep it brief and keep it moving. Okay. We'll be beginning with Mr. Brown. All right. The Board of Aldermen recently voted to increase their salaries to $72,000. Is such a salary justified? Please.
Yes, opening statement to make.
Oh, Mr. Yeah, let me get that. Thank you. I've never done this before, so ask you to give me grace on these things. Mr. Brown, 2 minutes, please.
Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for making it out tonight, and big thank you to the neighborhood organizations and the work organizations that help put this together, and to the offices for moderating this debate. My name is Michael Browning, and I am running to be your alderperson for the new 9th Ward. I'm someone who shows up for their community. As vice president of the Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association, I helped organize community events. I did beautification efforts, and I even led the community engagement around development in our neighborhood. As outreach director for the St. Louis Young Democrats, I helped move policy forward across the entire St. Louis region by organizing volunteers and personally going out and knocking doors for candidates across our St. Louis region. Specifically, I've knocked thousands of doors in St. Louis and heard from voters all across our city, especially in our neighborhoods, the Central West End, Forest Park Southeast, and Kings Oak. But also, I've knocked outside the 9th Ward in neighborhoods like Princeton Heights and Wells Goodfellow and Hamilton Heights and Dutchtown. I've crafted the policies in my platform to really serve people and help them in the ways that I've heard at those doors. So I think that people deserve to be safe in their homes and on our streets. People deserve to make sure that our city services serve them well, and that our buildings are built up to code and that people are safe in them. I am interested in real change and lasting solutions, and I'm asking for your vote today so that we can have a St. Louis that feels like it cares about its people, and so that we can have change in our city that really you can see, hear, and believe in. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight and taking the time to be here. I know you all have busy schedules. I want to thank the club and the neighborhood associations for making this happen. And thank you, Michael Browning and Mike Gras, for being here. I am a transracial adoptee. My parents are both white. Because of that, I am here today. I'm running for re-election in the great new 90 because my parents tried to bridge the divide, and I'm trying to bridge the divide. Not only did my parents adopt me, but they also adopted 5 Black siblings. What I learned from them is I learned to serve. And I've been striving for equality for all, because a city will thrive when everybody thrives. And what we need is equality. As a result, for over 20 years, I've been strengthening communities like my parents did. I've worked for nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity. I've also worked for the St. Louis Partnership. I've also been the vice president of the Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association. I have my master's degree at MIT in city planning and my bachelor's in architecture. Why? Because I've wanted to strengthen cities. What these experiences have done is it has allowed me to bring the best practices to St. Louis. And as Alderwoman, I brought the equitable development contribution to St. Louis, which is a $1.8 million fund for affordable housing to maintain it and to expand it. Thank you.
Hold on.
Hi, everyone. I am Mike Gras. For those who don't know, I am the current 28th Ward Alderman. I want to echo the thanks that my colleagues gave. Thanks to you guys for being here. Thanks for the organizers putting this on. I know it's a lot of work, so we appreciate it. And thank you again for being here. Just want to introduce myself. So again, my name is Mike Gras. I live on Maryland in Central West End, Maryland, between Taylor and Hempstead. I've lived there since about 2015. I'm a St. Louisan, grew up in St. Louis, went to high school here, went to undergrad here, went to law school here. My wife and I moved into our house in Central West End in 2015. She's an OBGYN, private practice out in West County. I work as an attorney. We have 2 small children, a 4-year-old son, Alex, 2-year-old daughter, Cecilia. They are absolutely fantastic, and I'm so blessed to have them and my family. Again, I'm a lawyer, and got put in the as 28th Ward Alderman in the special election in April. So I've only been in the seat for about 9 months, but I've already accomplished a great deal. One thing that I'd like to just highlight, proud of, because I think it's an example of kind of the skills I bring to the table, is getting the Alderperson project started and going on Kings Highway at Lingle. This is a project that is good for the entire city and had been delayed for a few years. And I was able to really build a coalition in which the mayor was supportive of the project, the president of the board was supportive of the project, we had a majority of Alder people supporting it. And we were able to get a deal that I think benefits everybody. I think that's just an example of skills that I have to bring people together, to really find practical solutions where, it seems like there could never be any way that people would be able to see eye to eye. I'm good at finding those kind of solutions. So look forward to talking more.
Mr. Brown, the Board of Aldermen recently voted to increase their salaries to $72,000. Is such a salary justified? Please explain why you support or oppose the bill raising the salary for the incoming board.
Well, that's an excellent question, and I'm glad we're starting off with it. Yes, I do support the salary increase because the salary previously was $37,000 a year. It was not enough for a single Alderperson to live off of. They either had to depend on someone else's income or they had to have a second job, which is what a lot of Alder people did. that leads to conflicts of interest. It leads to situations where people have business with the city, or they can do something for themselves in office that might even enrich their own family. That's not great, and we need to eliminate all opportunities for that kind of corruption. I also think that with the $72,000, though, we should be having full-time alder people. And that is something that I'm committing to. I think that it's what the constituents and what you deserve. And so that is what I'm going to give you, and it's something that I don't think either of my opponents can offer.
So with that question, thank you. I believe that the increased salary is important because this is a full-time job. And as this board is going to be expanding into the grade 9, we need to make sure that we have everybody able to be represented with a full-time salary. And so I believe that this is really important that we increased it. We also will be able to have people represented from different walks of life because the salary is increased. And I have been working diligently now as a 17th ward alderman full-time, and I will continue to do that as a 9th ward alderman.
I voted in favor of the raise. I do support the raise. I completely agree that this is a full-time job. It's more than a full-time job. It has a lot of responsibility. I will also say that, you know, I stepped into, wasn't planning on being alderman. It really wasn't on my radar until there was an opening for the seat when Heather Navarro stepped down. So I was, you know, in the middle of private practice, and I kind of decided pretty quickly there into it that, you know, I couldn't continue to run my own law firm and litigate a set of cases while I was doing this at all. So I'm winding down my private practice. I was hoping, I think the website shouldn't be down right now, but my practice is done, and I certainly am wanting to make this my full-time job. Now, I will say that the bill that was put on by the board says it's a full-time job, but there aren't any, you know, bars for outside employment. So, you know, yeah.
Ms. Pihl, the current board of aldermen recently voted a bill out of committee to provide a $9.7 million tax abatement for the developer of the 293-unit luxury apartment tower at the Kings Highway limit. Alderman Pihl, you of course voted against the measure. Alderman Gras voted for it. And Mr. Brown, we'd like to hear your position on the bill. Please tell us what you would have done had you been able to vote.
Thank you for that question. The reason I voted and opposed that particular board bill is that I have been working with the developers, and they told us how much they wanted to give in terms of how much they needed to develop that particular property. And we came to an agreement with that. And I had offered a special tax exemption. And then it went back to the city and they asked for more money. It was something that was not needed because the revenues in terms of what is going to be coming back to the city, we never calculate how much it costs per person to be here in the city. And because of that, I decided that this is not a good idea.
Well, yes, I think, like I mentioned in my opening statement, you know, I think it was a good project. I really encourage all of you guys to watch the Board of Aldermen meeting when the bill was passed, and the HUTS committee meeting where this project was discussed, because we really got into the numbers and we really saw how good of a deal it is for the city. You know, that parking lot right there makes only about $60,000 a year in taxes. And right off the bat, during the abatement period, the 10-year abatement period, it's going to pull in, you know, about 470,000, and thereafter it's going to make more money. And I really don't think that project would happen without incentives. I think they were necessary for it. And I would also just like to highlight that the developers have also made a commitment to contribute $1.3 million to the city in order to get, more immediate benefit from the project. So I know Alderwoman Pihl highlighted the $1.8 billion contribution she previously received on the project. And I think that this kind of contribution is in the same vein. So this really was a win-win for everyone, and I'm proud to have got it done.
So let's be clear, that's a great project, and I think it's gonna add a lot to our city. It's a beautiful tower, and the Coppers have been a really good family for that area of the Central West End, and I'm looking forward to the benefits that that building will bring. But if I were Alderperson, and I had been in a position to vote for or vote against it, I want to say this. It would have gone down completely different from the very beginning if I were Alderperson. The entire reason it had to be rushed through the Board of Aldermen the way it was at the very end is because there was delay and obfuscation and moving goalposts at the beginning of the process. We need to be treating developers and meeting with them in good faith. We need to make sure that we're working out the best deal for the city. So the answer is, if I were Alderman, that deal would have been done months ago and it would have been a better deal for the city.
Next question, this will go first to Mr. Gras. Mr. Browning has proposed that city employees handling broken taillight stops and accident reports be unarmed. What are your thoughts on this proposal?
I would agree with that. I'm not really clear what the proposal is, because I think there's been a lot of discussion over the years. I know the Center for Police Ethics, I think is their name, did a study on the city and things that the city could do to bring unarmed civilians to do some jobs that the police are doing. And some of that is responding to crash reports, some of it responding to accidents, filing crash reports, some things that make sense that we don't really need our police for. What I understand Michael Brown's position is having unarmed people pull people over that are running stop signs. And I think that is a completely different activity than responding to a crash report, doing a report. And I am not in favor of sending city police out where they would be, enforcing traffic laws to the point where they're, pulling people over for running stop signs and issuing tickets for that.
I'm glad this question was asked because I love a chance to clarify my comments. I am in favor of having city personnel handle routine reports and low-risk situations. Did you know we only have 7 traffic police for the entire city? That's probably why you often see a lot of traffic laws being unenforced right now. It does not make sense to pull those officers off of their duties so that they can go fill out a report. I'm gonna try to tell a quick story in time. A neighbor of mine was carjacked and he was without a phone. I helped him call the police and then we waited half an hour for an armed officer to show up to take the report. The danger was long over. We needed somebody just to fill out a report, and it would have made much more sense to have a civilian city personnel come and fill out that report and let the police go on handling the job that they're supposed to do. So that is my proposal, is to supplement the police and assist them so that they can be doing the jobs that we need them to do.
Regarding this question, I believe that traffic cops, they do a lot of things when they are pulling over somebody. You just don't know what's going to be happening. Traffic cops also, sometimes they are going to be going to different types of instances, and they have to deal with it. So I do believe that they should be armed. The difference is that in terms of police being armed or not armed, as we see, it's not about being armed or not armed. We have seen that police that aren't armed also brutalize individuals. So there's a difference in terms of we need to look at what police have to do, and then we have to look at how police act and how they may have infractions in terms of causing harm to people that is acceptable.
Next question. The city has been assessed $10 million for judgment related to 2 incidents of excessive force used by its police officers. At the same time, crime appears to be surging. What are your ideas on combating increased crime and advancing issues of police accountability? And we'll start with Ms. Pihl.
A few things that I would say regarding reducing crime here is that we need to really look at what we're doing in terms of services for education. You know, a lot of the crime is due to that individuals do not see a pathway out of being a low income. And we need to make sure that the education here in St. Louis, which is not good in the public schools, we need to make sure that we're funding them through taxes. And so that would be one idea in terms of reducing crime.
Well, I certainly agree that we need to take holistic approaches to address the root causes of crime. And I think that, a lot of what we do on the Board of Aldermen is trying to do that. We need to do that, but, we have to chew gum and walk at the same time. We also need to do what we can do, immediately to address crime. Now, I will say, it's kind of weird timing that we're having these elections just a month after we hired a brand new police chief. And I'm actually scheduled to have my first meeting with the police chief tomorrow. So, I think that I'm a big believer that, I like to support people when they're doing jobs. So I want to, get the police chief in there, talk to him, see what his priorities are, definitely communicate the needs of our neighborhood to him. And try to support him as best as possible. I understand that he's a big data guy, that he likes to use, data approaches to solutions, and I feel the same way. So, yeah, work with the chief.
So the reason that I proposed a supplemental civilian force to help assist with police duties is because the Board of Aldermen actually hasn't really been doing anything to combat the increased violence we've been seeing, the traffic violence that we've been seeing, the reckless driving, and really, I think that the holistic approach is fine to say, but like we're not actually proposing policies that actually will do that. I am a big proponent of tenants' rights because I think if we make people more secure in their housing, and that kids aren't switching schools 4 times a year, they're less likely to end up in the criminal justice system. I'm a big proponent of making sure that we redesign our roads so that it's not so easy to violate our traffic laws. I think if you're going to talk about holistic approaches, do them. And I just don't think we've seen our board doing that. But those are my priorities.
Each new alderperson will receive approximately $600,000 in discretionary ward capital funds to be used for pothole repairs, replacing streetlights, street trees, improving sidewalks, etc. If that's assuming the current distribution plan is carried over. However, needs in some wards far outstrip the available funds. Would you favor centralizing infrastructure decisions on a citywide basis or continue the present system, and why? For the incumbents, how much of your current $300,000 has not yet been allocated to specific project in your wards, and what are your plans for it? And I believe we start with Mr. Gras.
So the issue of ward capital as a whole, I think it is very interesting. And yes, I agree. I do think that the city should centralize a lot of infrastructure decisions, especially in regards to maintenance. I think it's really kind of silly that, alders have so much control and power over, the infrastructure spending in their wards. And to the point where, alders have to decide whether or not they want to, do a pedestrian light project or pave the street. And, I think new things generally, I don't know, sometimes take precedent and sometimes things don't get maintained as well as possible. So I think that we should centralize a lot of infrastructure. Things like street paving should be done on a citywide level. It should not be done ward by ward. As far as allocating our funds, all of our funds, I think I'm under 100,000 for sure left. That's not earmarked for something. And I want to make sure that everything's done before the end of the session because we're rolling over.
In short, yes, we need a citywide system. Not only is ward capital inequitable, but it's not working. Look at our streets; they're a mess. Not to mention we have like certainly the country's best urban park right across the street. But unfortunately, that street is Kings Highway, and it's terrifying to walk across. If we actually centralize decisions, not only could we redo giant roads like Kings Highway, but we can make sure that we're prioritizing pedestrians, bicyclists, and people who use mobility devices to make our streets safer. I just don't think that ward capital has been serving its purpose, and it puts the decisions in the wrong hands. Our alders are not traffic engineers. They're not, city experts, and I think that we should be putting it in a centralized, staffed, and funded street department.
Regarding ward capital, I believe that as a city planner, there's many times that we as alder people, it should not be in our hands. We should have this as a centralized process. One of the things in terms of the ward capital right now, I make sure that I am working with the streets department in terms of when we decide to do things, because again, we're not the traffic engineers. What I would like to see also in terms of having a centralized plan is that we also need a master city plan to go along with an infrastructure plan. And when we can put those two things together, we can become a stronger city because we're not in silos, parsing out the money and how we're going to be planning for the city.
Now we'll get something to the real meat of this, some questions from you all. This first person asked, what will you do to reduce crime? More specifically, to prevent the circuit attorney from releasing arrestees who've been arrested numerous times before. And so this would begin with Mr. Brown.
So I think we touched a little bit on this earlier. Public safety is a huge issue in St. Louis. It's a really important thing. The perception of it in our city it's hurting our city right now. I think they get a handle on it. Not only can we do things to increase housing stability and redesign our streets, but we can also make sure that our circuit attorney's office is running better. That is outside the purview of the Board of Aldermen, but one thing that they could do is allocate some money from these funds that we've received to make sure that we clear the backlogs from the pandemic so that we aren't trying to rush people through the system. We don't need people that should be in jail being put back out on the streets. And I think part of the problem is that huge backlog right now. So hiring prosecutors and defense attorneys so that we can get through that and actually free up resources and really address the crime problem that we have. But taking care of people and their needs is first.
So in terms of this, in terms of reducing crime, what I believe is that we should have the whole city in terms of coming up with ideas in terms of how we can reduce the crime. I think that one of the things we have right now is that the community is not involved in terms of how we want to decrease it. And so what I'm proposing would be to have our administration and our police and our community all together and have conversations around that and propose ideas in which we can mitigate the crime in terms of the city.
I would agree that, the first thing we have to do is start taking care of our people. So, we kind of start, getting the problem once we have it under control. But again, we have to still do what we can now with the crime we're facing. There's a lot of focus on violent crime, probably rightfully so. And I think that I'm supportive of efforts like Cure Violence, where we have actually programs that try to directly intervene in violent situations to stop them. I think that requires vigilance. And while, Cure Violence has worked, I think that we have to make sure that it continues working. If there's other programs and other people that are going to do the same kind of thing, we have to make sure that we support them as well. But I feel like about all the focus on violent crime, sometimes we think that property crime is maybe less serious crime, and that sometimes it's ignored by the city. And I don't think that we should do that. I think that it adds to the overall sense of lawlessness, and we still have to address that as well.
Next question, and this person has, for your comments on the $685 million that recently added to the St. Louis Development Corporation budget, and plans to inform the public as to how the money is spent in terms of progress reports, I guess, on your website or otherwise. See, but this will go. First, do you want to see what that to?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yes. What are your comments do you have available on the $685 million that was recently added to the St. Louis Development Corporation budget? And what plans do you have to inform the public on how the money is spent? Not only that money, but as well as the influx of money we receive as part of the RAND settlement support.
So what I feel regarding the $685 million going to SLDC, and one of the things that is really important is accountability and transparency. And so what I believe in terms of that is that we need to make sure that the citizens know how this money is going to get spent. And so we have issues regarding that, and I believe that we need to have that information posted online. I also believe that, in terms of that information, we shouldn't have to sunshine that information and wait for it, but that it should be present at this point in time so that citizens can see it immediately.
So if I'm not mistaken, my understanding of what we're talking about is $685,000 was added to the SLDC's budget for marketing purposes, so they can hire a communications firm to assist them. And there are a lot of people in the community, and a lot of my colleagues on the board, frankly, who are very, skeptical of that, don't understand that. And I will admit, I probably have a very unpopular opinion here. But I actually think that that's a fine use of money. SLDC has a very important job in the city, where we've entrusted a lot of responsibility to be in charge of economic development. They have to be our face to, capital across the world in order to attract it here to St. Louis. And for them to be able to have a professional presentation while they're out there, meeting people and doing things to attract economic development to our city, I think is important. So, yeah.
So yeah, I do agree that it's important to have our city be appealing to outside developers that want to come in and invest in our city and help build our city. We need to grow, and I think SLDC is a big part of that. I'm looking forward to working with them if I'm elected in order to help our city grow in a responsible way. They've been doing good things. I don't know if you saw the North Side Economic Empowerment Center open recently up in the old Sumner High School. That's a great project, and I'm really excited to see what it can do for our people. The other thing I'll say is we talk about transparency, but if you've been on the board for the last couple of years, what have you done to increase transparency? I still can't watch SLDC meetings online. They don't record their meetings. They don't actually post them online. We need to have that level of transparency if we're going to see it, but we need to make it actually happen if we want it.
This next person asks, what have you done about the fentanyl crisis? I think might better be framed as what do you see as possible remedies to slow down this hideous drug that's taking over the city? Right, with you, Mr. Gras.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I all of our first responders have to have Narcan. I think that was passed by the board and it's supposed to be in effect, but I'm hearing that that's not true and that not everybody has it. So I think that needs to be definitely a priority to make sure. I think that anytime you're dealing with addiction issues and mental health as a whole, I think supporting programs that bring treatment and see this as a medical problem, not really a criminal problem, I think is the approach we need to take with it. I'm really wanting to support, our health department and all interested stakeholders to help this problem.
I agree with Mr. Gras that this is a health crisis and not a criminal problem, so we need to provide more resources. What have I personally done? I actually went and I got trauma and response training with the T. They're a great organization that actually will, for free, train you up. They'll give you Narcan. So I keep Narcan at home in case I come across people in my community that have overdosed and need help. That's the first thing you can do, is be personally responsible for your neighbors, be available to help them if they need you. The other thing I'll note is that I'm sure the Alderwoman from 17 is going to talk about a health initiative that she's been working on. I want to note that the incidents in the Parkview Police Department that happened over a year ago, and there was a report, a really good report, written on follow-up to that. And we should read that report and follow those recommendations and not take a year to implement them.
So unfortunately, in the 17th ward, we had a tragedy 1 year from this month in February. It was at Parkview Apartments in which 7 people overdosed. And when I found out about that, I jumped into action. And one of the things that I'm doing right now is creating a harm reduction initiative. And what we're trying to do is save lives. What we saw in terms of this fentanyl crisis is that we didn't know where to go except 911. And so I'm working with the Clark Fox Foundation on a harm reduction ecosystem now. And what it's going to do is going to bring the silos together. We had 2 community listening sessions because of this fentanyl crisis at Parkview Apartments. And what the provider said is that harm reduction and the organizers, there's a stigma regarding drugs. And so that they really would like to know who else is doing and providing harm reduction tools for drug overdose.
Next question, I guess this is to Mr. Brown. How would you use American Rescue Act funds? What is your priority of those expenditures?
My understanding is that most of the American Rescue Act, the ARPA funds have already been allocated by the board. So by the time I get there, most of them will have been spent. However, my priority for them would have been, and still will be for any monies that we have, infrastructure. We need to make our streets whole again. We need to complete them so that they're safe for our pedestrians and bicyclists. We need to make sure that we have a comprehensive plan and we're targeting the areas that are the most dangerous first, limiting that opportunity for crime, and making sure that, our city feels like it cares about you. And you have to replace your tires 4 times a year because of the condition of our streets. It doesn't feel like it cares about you. So let's get the basics right and let's get our infrastructure right.
So regarding the remaining ARPA funding, one of the things that I've been talking to with the Board of Alder is to use the funding to create a new master comprehensive city plan. One of the things we have is we have a comprehensive plan from the 1940s. And what we need to do is have a master plan so that we know how we're going to go forward together. I've talked to a lot of constituents regarding what we're doing. And a lot of constituents are like, what are we imagining? Where are we going? And what I've seen, I've worked in Denver, they have a master plan. They just came out with it just a year ago. And what I've seen is that they have been able to make progress and become a strong city. And I feel that we too need to have a master plan, an updated master plan, so that we can move forward. So that is where I would put the priority for the ARPA fund.
So there's a little bit of a problem because we have a lot of this money appropriated, as in the Board of Aldermen has, said where we think the money should go. But this money needs to get spent, or else the government can take it back. The federal government can take it back. And right now, the money isn't appropriated to the level that kind of protects the government from doing so. So on the board, we need to make sure that if these projects go forward, that this ARPA gets spent. Board Bill 120 was passed. I agree with Mr. Browning that we need to keep these things focused on infrastructure. There were some attempts by other members on the stage to add some pet projects to that infrastructure bill. I oppose those efforts to keep that strictly on infrastructure. So I also think that I'm going to run out of time, but this problem of not being able to spend money fast enough does require us to look at our city charter and how we can spend money as a city to increase our capacity.
Just want to encourage you, if you, we look like we have adequate time, if you still have questions that have not been addressed, you would raise your hand and someone can give you an index card and we can take some additional questions. There's one back in the back. We're moving on in the meantime. We had one question on this, but apparently did not get fully addressed to this person's satisfaction. I'm going to reword it slightly. Question is basically when that tax incentives, TIFs, and other tax incentives were designed initially to help lift up depressed areas of the city. They really haven't been used that way. So would ask you, each of you, why is that the case? And when is it appropriate to issue an abatement or a tax incentive? What would the terms and conditions be associated? Ms. T.
Thank you for that question. It's a running debate here in the city regarding, how should we be using tax incentives? Tax incentives were supposed to be used as a tool in areas that are not thriving. And so for us to be able to use these tax incentives properly, we should be using them in the north side or even on parts of the south side. We shouldn't be using them in developments that are luxury apartments, in particular the Albion, because what is happening is that I know that our taxes here in the 17th Ward and everywhere else, they're going up. And they're going up because we're having these luxury apartment buildings not taxed. And so the services that we are required to house the new people that are coming in to the Midtown, we're not able to pay for those services. So we should really go back to why are these tax incentives necessary? They're necessary to jumpstart the economy in the north and south of the city.
I think that tax incentives should be.
So yeah, I think the biggest thing with tax incentives, and this is something that is really, there's been a lot of kind of change just recently on, is that historically it had been a very kind of black box process where, developers would ask for tax incentives, the city would kind of just give them what they wanted, and we don't really know too much about it. SLDC has now created a scorecard where, they are going to judge every project. I think there's like 150 points, every aspect of the project, what it can get. And if it doesn't qualify, and a big part of that is, what's the economic benefit, what does it do for affordable housing, and if it doesn't do enough, and it's also based on that. So like our neighborhood is very hard to get incentives, and the only way you can kind of get them for a project that doesn't, let's say, have affordable housing or something like that, is by making contribution to the city. So I think there's been a lot of help with that.
So I don't think the tax incentives should be decided by all the people. It led to corruption this last summer. We saw 3 indictments over it, where they gave away millions of dollars to our city for trinkets. It was a shame, and it's a dark time for our city. We really need to be moving this to citywide planning department, where we can have expert negotiators who are actually making the best deal for the city possible. And I'll throw this last thing out. I think that when we are cutting taxes and we're eroding the tax base of our school system, because the schools get a lot of their funding through our taxes, we need to make sure that we're inviting the public school system and the Board of Education to the table. We do that with tips on the tip commission, and we should do that with tax payments as well, because we're playing with their money and they should have a say in it.
Our next question goes to Mr. Gras first. What is your position on a city-county merger?
So I think a full city-county merger or re-entry or any kind of big thing like that, the devil's really in the details. I think that there's a lot of reasons to do it that are kind of obvious, but I think that there's a whole bunch of ways that if we do it, it can really go bad, and we can, for instance, destroy minority representation in the area. That said, I think there are a lot of things we can kind of do in the interim without a full merger to kind of start combining the two. One of them I would like to see is, the county just recently enacted a online building permit system. And I think that the city should not only follow suit with that, but I would actually like to see the city and the county merge and be able to, start being able to do those kinds of things together on the same system. I think that would create a lot of efficiency.
Regarding a merger between the city and county, I actually do.
Fragmentation is killing this region. So we absolutely do need to get our act together and find some way to unite with the county. But, it's got to be a good deal for the city. It's got to make sense for the city. One thing I'm going to say is that there's clear ways that we can do this without a full county merger that would benefit the city. The public libraries recently combined their catalogs. It's going to save them $100,000 a year. We should be looking at small steps that we can take like that to really integrate our systems better and have them working together in a more collaborative way. So the next thing that I think we should look at is policing, fire, things like emergency services and other city and area-wide things. We can do this step by step. It doesn't need to be in one fell swoop where we might, as Mike said, the devil's in the details. We might accidentally do something we didn't mean to do. So let's take it slow. Let's do the right thing though, and let's move towards consolidation in a way that works well for everybody.
So regarding a city-county merger, I believe that it would be important to do. The reason is that I feel, and not only I see that in the nation, mergers between city and counties have worked really well. And I think that we should look at best practices from other cities and counties. One example would be in Denver, and that they actually work together really well. And I see that we could do the same thing. It will take some time. It might not be immediate. But if we can work on it in a steady pace, we can get to a solution that it would work very well. So I think we should continue the conversations regarding that, because I feel that this will help our city to thrive and not just survive, because we will be able to have a better economic base. And I think that will also help.
Our next question then. Which goes to Mr. Brown first. What initiatives do you have in mind to enhance affordable housing in the new Ninth Ward for students, long-term residents who are being priced out, families and young adults?
Yes, there's no doubt that we need affordable housing in this city. And again, I propose moving the development process to a city level so that we can better assess our needs and target it in areas that need it the most. You don't want to build entire neighborhoods out of affordable housing. That's not good for that neighborhood either. You need to have mixed and diverse neighborhoods in order for us all to thrive. I think there's a lot we can do to incentivize affordable housing, because that is something that should be incentivized so that the costs add up and we can make sure it happens. But I also think that we can do things like voucher systems, so that we're not building just a building that's just supposed to be affordable housing, but we're really providing assistance to people so that they can live wherever they need to live, stay close to their work or what they need. There's a lot of practices that we can put in place, and this is an issue I'm going to be getting on very quickly if I'm elected to office, because we have a 35,000 affordable unit housing shortage in the city, and we need to make sure that we are building.
Regarding increasing affordable housing, it's really important because here in the city, we score on the affordable housing report card. And in the new Ninth Ward, in terms of getting affordable housing, we need to spread out where the affordable housing is in the city. And so bringing some more affordable housing here in the new Ninth Ward would be good, because we have actually lost a lot of homeowners and renters because they've been priced out. And so, one of the things we need to do is definitely incentivize. I mean, it's hard to have that in terms of affordable housing pay for itself. So we will definitely need to give funds and incentives to do that. Again, we can't have it concentrated in one place. We need to spread it out. One of the particular reasons we need to do that is that we need people to be living amongst each other and not concentrated in one area.
So we definitely need more affordable housing in the city, but we also just need more housing of all types. We need more affordable housing, we need more middle housing, we need more expensive housing. Mr. Browning referenced that we have a 34,000 deficit unit of affordable housing. That came from a report called Affordable STL, came out last couple of years, and they did a really good job in that report. The report also found that we don't have enough housing for people that are making over 100% AMI either. So that right now, the people that are make over 100% AMI are competing for housing with the people that make under 100% AMI, 60 and 80% AMI. The report found that. So, that's another reason why, let's say, the Albion project actually does, I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive to incentivize luxury housing makes affordable housing, but it actually up and down the chain creates more housing. It makes everything more affordable.
This next one is what we started with this Pihl. How exactly does renters' rights and lawyers for evicted renters funded by the city make the city better?
So in terms of renters, I know there's a lot of problems with some landlords here, and in terms of vetting developers and making sure that renters are able to have somebody to represent them. One of the things in the 17th ward is that There have been developers, who have not been able to, the developments are, what do I say? Tenants have come to me in terms of the developments have mice or, rats, leaking in buildings. And, they need to make sure that the tenants, are able to be represented. So I think that is very important.
Well, if the question is about funding lawyers, for the tenants' right to counsel and eviction proceedings that the Board of Aldermen just passed, I was a supporter of that bill. I co-sponsored it, and I think that it is going to be helpful, really, for the city because, I have experience as an attorney going to court and showing up and the other side's not represented by counsel. And it's a pain. And I actually think, and I know this again may sound counterintuitive, but once we start this project off, this tenants' right to counsel project off, I think we're going to see that even landlords are going to appreciate that when they show up to court on eviction proceedings, the other side's represented by counsel. I think that there'll be more opportunities to create amicable settlements. I think that landlords will be more likely to give people more time to do that on their own, get a continuance, as we say in the law.
So we have a lot of good landlords in our city, but we also have a lot of bad ones, and they're bringing our city down. Having the right to an attorney, as Mr. Gras said, it really helps even the playing field in housing court. But let's not stop there. Let's give tenants many more rights too. Priority in London office is going to be a tenant's bill of rights because we should not be treating over half the population that rents in this city as second-class citizens. We need to be guaranteeing them the rights to be able to fight for themselves and follow it up with an office at the city level that can help ensure those rights and help find the resources and help mitigate situations with landlords. When we do this, we're going to raise the standard of development and housing in our city, and we're going to find that people are safer and secure in their homes, and we're going to find that that has ripple effects through our entire society. It's a great thing. Let's treat people like they deserve to be treated.
Thank you. See, this next question is really a forward-looking individual posed this because at present there is no Ninth Ward Democratic organization. But if the Ninth Ward Democrats voted to endorse a particular candidate, then would you, as the Ninth Ward Alderman, openly endorse a different candidate if they went to your liking? And Steve, it will begin this time with
I'm not a politician yet, so I haven't really endorsed anybody personally. I do kind of feel like that is a personal thing. You're putting your name behind someone, and so I like to keep that autonomy if I were to be elected. I think that, if you're putting your name behind someone, you're vouching for that. And that's important. That being said, you should have these conversations with your ward organization. Talk to them about why you support that candidate and, come to an understanding. I think that one thing I'm very proud of myself and very proud to do is I sit down with people even if I disagree with them and I find the best outcome. So, I think that there's room to discuss that, but I do think endorsements are very personal matters and I think we keep them that way.
So regarding an endorsement and whether I would endorse another candidate, I make sure that we need to be communicating together to see whether our visions are going to be aligned. And I think that it's important in terms of working with other people that there is communication. And that you see how you can be able to work together. And so that's how I would be viewing this question.
Well, I agree that endorsements are a personal in nature, when you put your name behind it, that you know, that it means something. So I don't think that we should be tying any individual's hands by endorsement that the group makes. And that said, I don't just say that as an individual. You know, I'm a big believer that board organizations are a very important thing in the city. It's a good way that we've organized ourselves for a long time, and I think we should continue to do so after board reduction. And I have seen that, you know, I think that sometimes can be a barrier and a hindrance to building a big open board organization when we try to enforce, you know, views on officers and say, okay, well, you know, all the officers have to feel a certain way because there's a vote among the membership. You know, I think there are a lot of people that just don't really want to get involved in an organization that could, you know, kind of tie their hands in that way. So I've never really agreed with that, organizations doing that, and I would continue to disagree with it now.
Thank you. See, next question, starting with Ms. Pihl. How important is it to work with institutions we have in our ward? And can progress be brought to the north side top down, or does it have to be by grassroots effort from the ground up?
You know, it is important to be working with everyone in order to develop and grow this city. It's important to work with the institutions. And I have been doing that as an alderwoman. I think that in terms of working on the north side, we should be working grassroots, and we should be working top down. I think we should be working together in terms of finding the happy medium to make sure that our economy will be growing.
Can you repeat the first part of the question one time?
How important is it to work with institutions we have in the ward? And can progress be brought to the north side top down, or does it have to be a grassroots effort from the bottom up?
Okay, so the first part of the question is, I mean, I think it's extremely important that we work with institutions in the ward. You know, that's part of our job as always to work with, you know, everybody in our ward and the institutions. Our ward's lucky that we have a lot of institutions, honestly, and I think that's a good segue, you know, into the second part of the question, because, you know, we're very fortunate this part of the town that we have a lot of strong institutions that kind of hold the whole neighborhood together, even if, you know, the city's not pulling its own weight. But in other parts of our city, you know, everyone fends for themselves. And you just honestly sometimes just have an alder and that's it. So I think that we need to have both approach. I know it's kind of the cop-out answer, but you know, I think that we need the top-down, you know, we need to align our top-down approach to developing North St. Louis in a way that benefits, you know, the bottom up too, and get everybody working in the same direction for our community.
Yes, I agree. It's really important to work with the organizations and the institutions in your area. And then it's important to note that not everybody has organizations and institutions in their area. Again, this is actually something I'd like to see a citywide development office do, is have a section that addresses community engagement. You know, good community engagement is hard. I know because I've done it in my neighborhood. We had to do it when there wasn't a process in place. So that takes a lot of resources and a lot of effort. And I think that we ought to be taking a city office, then going into the neighborhoods and empowering the people in those neighborhoods or the organizations in the neighborhoods to run good community engagement so that whatever thing we're doing there, whether it's development or infrastructure, we can make sure that we're meeting the community's needs and we're really addressing exactly what people need in that community and not harming them. It's really important.
For this next one, we'll go first to Mr. Gras. What do you think are the most important qualities of an effective alderperson?
I think that, you know, being able to talk to people from every corner of the city and work with folks all over to build coalitions to get things done is important. There are a lot of alders on the board right now that I feel like can't really work with other people. They're a little bit too much in their own world, and they can't put themselves in other people's shoes well enough. I've always found that I've been able to kind of put myself in other people's shoes and see the other sides of things. My entire career, really my entire life. So being empathetic, being able to talk to anybody and build coalitions, I think is an important quality for any legislator for all of them as well.
So there used to be a time when you could call your Alderperson and they would come and help you. And I think we can get back there. The most important characteristic of an Alderperson, I think, is responsiveness. Call people back when they call you. Return their email within, 48 hours. That doesn't seem like that hard to do, but it's something that's really important to stay in touch with your constituents. Show up to their community meetings, meet them where they are, knock on their doors. I've knocked over 1,400 doors already in this race. My team is approaching 9,000 doors. That's how you get to people, is you go and you meet them where they are and you listen to them and you respond to them. And that's really what our other people should be doing.
So what I feel in terms of being an Alderperson, what is really important is I do feel community engagement and having community voice speak first. And the way to do that is to make sure that you're able to meet the constituents, the residents, at many different types of engagements. One is, community meetings. I personally have also office hours, and I have the office hours in the neighborhood and in the ward to make it easier for residents to be able to meet me. I also believe that in terms of working together is that we need to make sure that we can work with everyone. And as a person who's been working in nonprofits for 15 to 20 years, I have been able to work with many different people and walks of life.
For our next question, we'll be starting with Mr. Browning. Does the Board of Aldermen have any authority over Metro Transit? We need to get it, buses, Metrolink, so forth, car ride, running safely on time and in decent repair. Mr. Metro Transit.
So my understanding is that the Board of Aldermen actually does not have authority over that agency. But that being said, this is a public service and we need to have buses running on time if we're going to have economic growth in this city. You won't take the bus to your job if it's not going to show up on time. If we want to reduce car dependency and make our neighborhoods more walkable, we need to make sure that we have accessible public transit and safe public transit. There's a statistic that one of the most dangerous places for pedestrians is actually within 200 feet of a bus stop. So, while I can't fix Metro, what I'm going to do as Alderperson is prioritize infrastructure around our Metro stops to make sure that people are not getting harmed on their way to use our public transportation. And then I will work closely with Bi-State and the partners that so we can make sure that our buses are running on time and we're serving our people well.
So, public transit is very important for our community, for the city. We definitely need to reduce car dependency. We may not, as older people, be able to affect everything in terms of public transit, but what we can do is that we can talk to Bi-State in terms of what is needed for our community. One of the things that is important to the city of St. Louis is that everybody is connected by public transit. And so one of the things that I have been pushing for being having a north-south line, because we need to make sure that all residents are able to have adequate transit here in the city of St. Louis so that they do not have to be taking 2 or 3 or 4 buses to get to their job, and it takes them many hours.
Yeah, unfortunately, the Board of Aldermen doesn't have a lot of direct control over bi-state or public transit. But that being said, there's a lot of indirect things, we can do. First, advocating, to bi-state, and for, infrastructure projects like from East West Gateway, they fund like the Metrolink expansion. The city has a big voice to play in that. I think building our infrastructure around public transportation is also a good idea, because building an accessible city and making sure that our residents can access everything that's already in our city, I think benefits everybody. And the other thing we can do is beyond just creating infrastructure around public transportation, is we can also create development around public transportation and use, our incentive process in that regard to build less car dependent development.
The next question will start with Ms. Pihl. What steps does the Board of Aldermen need to take to grow the city? What processes will you push to keep current residents and attract new ones? How do we make St. Louis a more attractive place to start and run a business? I know that's a lot. I can repeat it if you need. What steps does the Board of Aldermen need to take to grow the city? What processes will you push to keep current residents and attract new ones? How do we make St. Louis a more attractive place to start and run a business?
That's 3 separate questions. 15 seconds on each isn't fair. Split that into 3 questions. That's the only way to do that. That's not fair to ask those people. Because 1 minute's not as long as it seems.
I will accept your suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. Only fair.
So what steps does the Board of Aldermen need to take to grow the city?
So, in order for us, as a city to grow, we need to have a plan. And I feel that we need to have a master comprehensive plan. Because until we figure out how we're gonna move together, not in silos, because that's what's happening right now. You don't have a master plan. And so for us to grow the city, we need to have all the people, the residents, we also need the city offices to come together in order to create a comprehensive plan. And until we do that, it's going to be hard to make sure that we grow adequately. Because right now in the city, we are dependent on the developers and how they want to put development in different areas. But we're not doing it comprehensively. So I feel that, growing the city, seeing other cities grow in the United States, like Boston and Denver, they have comprehensive plans that are current, not 70 or 80 years old, like we have here, the city of Bones.
I think we need to attract people to this city by making it a good place to live and work and do business. And I think, those questions, and I agree the minute's really short, but I think those questions were actually kind of related because, we need to make it St. Louis a place where, running your business it's a good place to run your business. It's a good place to locate your business, to operate it. I think that if we can make it a city and not only just, make it a city that is attractive to other people, but also if it's a city that is known for the fact that we take care of our residents that are here by, making good public works projects and taking care of folks that are unhoused and making sure we have good social support systems, that makes the city a better place to live in general. And it makes it more attractive for everyone.
So the central theme of my campaign is making this a city that feels like it cares about its people. And we do that by taking care of the basic things that our city is supposed to do. When your trash doesn't get picked up on time, or your streets are in no repair, or the buildings around you are falling apart, that does not feel like your city cares about you. So we need to use the limited resources we have to invest in things that touch people's day-to-day lives. We need to focus on keeping young people here. We have great educational facilities and institutions in this city. But people graduate and then they leave because the city does not offer promise. They don't see a future here. So let's focus on our streets. Let's focus on getting the trash picked up right. Let's focus on public safety, because the perception of public safety in this city is hurting us. Get those basics right, and we'll find our population will grow.
I want to thank you all for your participation and your answers. Now we're going to move into our closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes for your closing statement, and we'll begin the closing statements in reverse order. So we'll be going first with Mr. Gras, then Ms. Pihl, and finally Mr. Brown.
Well, that was fun. I think we covered a lot. The short answers, didn't get us a lot to answer questions as fully as I would have liked, but we got to cover a lot of ground and got to, cover a lot of different questions. So I'm asking for your support and I'm asking for your vote on March 7th and April 4th, because I feel as though I am the candidate that's best suited for this job at this time. We're at a real crucial point in the city with the money we have, with the federal investments, with the ramp settlement money, with board reduction just occurring, with new faces in City Hall, new police chief. We really need someone right now who, has experience, has accomplished things in their life, and has, been able to show that they can bring people together, to move things forward, and to accomplish goals and accomplish tasks. So, I'm asking for your vote and your support. Thank you for being here. And yeah, that's it.
So I would just like to thank the Neighborhood Association and clubs for bringing us together for this forum. I am humbly asking you for your vote on March 7th and April 4th, because I feel that I have shown that I've been action-oriented here in the community to be able to get your needs met. In terms of the $1.8 million for the equitable development contribution for affordable housing has been increasing. Again, I've launched the harm reduction initiative in terms of the fentanyl crisis and trying to mitigate that. I also have worked with the Forest Park Southeast neighborhood in terms of having them have a greater voice in the community with some committees that we have. And we have the infrastructure and development committee. And I have relaunched those in terms of having it community resident run, first having an institution running it. And it seems like for the neighborhood, we are having more of a community voice. So I really think that's very important as an alderperson to make sure that the residents have a voice, that they are able to shape the neighborhood. And that's the type of alderwoman I have been representing the 7th Ward and would like to be representing the new great 9th Ward. So please, I would like to have your vote on March 7th and also on April 4th.
I think that St. Louis has a really bright future, and we're going to need to work hard to get there. With the board reducing down to 14 seats, it's really going to matter who your alderperson is. I'm going to answer your phone calls and return your calls. I'm going to uplift your voices. I'm going to be there for you. And I'm going to focus on tangible solutions for this city. This could be the last decade that St. Louis loses population. We can have the city services that you deserve. But to do that, we need to elect people who are hardworking and competent and proactive and in office. Now, I'm all about community. I came up through the community. It's where our people live, and I want to focus that. If I felt like the community's voice is being heard right now, I wouldn't be running. So I'm going to stick around after the forum tonight, and I'd love to speak with you all if you have more questions for me. And if you miss me tonight, I'm going to be out there knocking doors, coming to your community meetings, because that's what I do. I show up. I think St. Louis has a bright future. And if you're committed to that future, then I'm on your team. And I hope you'll be on mine. I humbly ask for your vote on March 7th and April 4th, and thank you again for the time to speak to you all tonight.
Thank you. What do we give all of our attendees? We're going to the part that we want to do. Thanks are also in order for our co-hosts, the 17th Ward FDR Club, the 28th Ward Regular Democratic Club, as well as a number of the neighborhood organizations. Forest Park Southeast Neighborhood Association, the Maryland Gaslight Neighborhood Association, and the West Pine Laclede Neighborhood Association. See, also our publicist, Ann Kidless, we got out these flyers. I know you may have seen them online. Our timekeeper for the evening, Sean O'Gorman of the 17th Ward. The committee woman, Gail Farwell, that opened up the evening for us. And my indispensable right hand and wife, Deborah Lovelace. We'll move from this room back into the cafeteria. We do have that area for a few more minutes. So use it to buttonhole our candidates and have a snack out there in the cafeteria. Want to invite you back approximately 1 month from today, Thursday, March 16th. Come back to get a word from the victors of the primary and help us make plans for the organization of the new 9th Ward Democratic Club. Same time, same place, Metro High, 7:30, March 16th. Put it in your calendar right now on your phone. We'll see you then. Thank you for your round of attention tonight and have a good evening.